Hello, friends. This is Paul, and I hope you're enjoying wandering through nature with me each week. Well, if you enjoy wandering through nature and you enjoy journaling those wanderings, in other words, writing down or drawing whatever you find out there on our adventures, well, I've got an awesome nature journal for you. Yeah, I have 3 different nature journals with 3 different covers on them. The insides are pretty much the same, lots of blank pages for you to write and draw all your experiences and your feelings while you're wandering through nature. The covers are different on each one of the 3. And I also, for the young at heart or the youngsters who wander through nature with you, I have a children's nature journal, which is a guided nature journal. Lots of pages filled with ideas and suggestions for adventures in nature. Maybe they want to go exploring nature at night, doing a bug night. Well, they can do that with my suggestions, and they can write everything down in their journal. And of course, I did leave some pages blank for the youngsters to actually fill them out. Where can you get these awesome journals? Well, they're available now on Amazon. Yeah, Amazon.com. Do a search for author Paul Farringer, and you'll find the Nature Wanderer journals. And I'm in the middle of creating some new ones, so keep an eye out and grab those journals while they're available. Have a great day and keep wandering through nature. Hello, friends. This is Paul, and of course, that means this is the Nature Wanderer podcast. Good to have you back, or if this is your first episode, welcome. Good to have you. I hope you've had a good week. I know I have. It's been fun trying to get out in nature. We had a lot of snow here in the past week, and now it's starting to warm up, so I was getting excited. It's like, good, I can get out and I don't have to worry about the wind chill, but unfortunately it warmed up enough where now it's raining, so I'm stuck inside today, and so I'm doing this episode from my studio. I did want to mention before I get started, I was reading a story today, and it was a little bit, I don't know, scary, disappointing. It was all about esports. Now, my first thought when I saw the title esports, I thought, well, this must mean like these video games where you play football or soccer or some other sport. But no, what it is an esport is a competition. It's a competition of video games. So a bunch of kids sit down and they play video games against each other. And there's high schools, middle schools, colleges doing this. They have these esport teams and they compete against each other. And as I got more in depth into the article, I learned that they actually have scholarships now for esports because some of the colleges have, well, classes, courses in esports and web development. Now, web development, I understand, but playing video games, and they tried to pass it off as this is a good thing because the kids are learning skills that they will need in life. And my thought was, all you need to do is get outdoors, explore nature. That will prepare you for life, not sitting in front of a screen. So here I am constantly, all the time, trying to push people, or I should say encourage people, to get outdoors and explore nature more. Especially young adults, young kids. Get outdoors because they spend so much time in front of screens now. They don't get outdoors. So I'm trying to encourage people to get outdoors more, and here the schools are encouraging them to sit in front of screens with these esports. So I'm sorry, I didn't want to get up on a soapbox here. It's just something that irked me a little bit today when I read that article. So esports are becoming very popular, and it started with the pandemic when kids were learning online and they were coming up with new ways to communicate with each other through Zoom, through other electronic means. And So esports started to evolve, and they've really caught on, and now these schools are making them, well, important. And it really bothered me. I actually found out today at the school that I substitute teach at, is they have an esports club, or I should call it a team, esports team at the middle school and up at the high school level. And I was talking to a kid about it, and he was telling me, he says, yeah, the high school kids are no good at it. We actually played against them and we beat them. It's like, well, why don't you guys get outdoors and explore nature instead of competing against each other? Start exploring the natural world together with each other. So what I'm encouraging you to do, if you're listening to this podcast, I imagine you must love nature. So take a youngster and get them outdoors. You get outdoors. Everyone get outdoors and explore nature. Take new people outdoors. Get them away from those video screens. Save the video screens for a rainy day like today. But on a nice day, get outside. And don't give me the excuse, well, it's winter, I can't get outside. Because I'm always saying, don't hibernate in the winter. We're not a hibernating species. So get out and explore nature every day, every season. Doesn't matter the weather. Yeah, I know. I'm sitting in here in the studio because it's raining and we had a lot of high winds. I should get outdoors. Maybe I'll do that after this podcast. Get a little wet. So anyhow, my topic is not about esports. My topic today is about a very interesting animal. This animal is very fascinating, has very interesting history, and they actually live throughout the entire U.S. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the beaver. And actually, I will warn you, this will be a two-parter. As I was researching the beaver, I mean, I know a lot about beaver, but as I was researching it, I kept coming up with more and more very interesting facts about the beaver. And as I'm writing my notes, I'm looking at it, it's like, oh boy, I don't know if I can cut this down to 30 minutes. So I may put this into, or I should say, I probably will put this into a 2-episode series. So anyhow, let's talk about the beaver. Castor canadensis is the Latin name for the beaver. And some people, when they think about the beaver, they have kind of a love-hate relationship with them. The beaver does not have the best reputation. The beaver, it depends on where you live and your experiences with them, your contact with them. You may love watching them. You may enjoy knowing what they do and seeing what they do. Or maybe they are destructive in your eyes and they destroy property and they destroy nature, and they're just so misunderstood. So a lot of people, as I see, have either a love or a hate relationship with the beaver. Me, I love them. They're very fascinating, interesting animals. And as a matter of fact, the beaver is the state mammal of 2 of our states in the United States. New York and Oregon have claimed the beaver as their state mammal. Now, it was proposed at one point that it become our national animal, but that didn't really fly. No. The national animal is, anyone know? Yeah, it's the bison. The bison is our national animal, but the beaver has become the state mammal of both New York and Oregon. So who is this beaver? Who is the beaver? And I'm not talking about Leave It to Beaver, the TV show. As a matter of fact, let's forget about television totally, because I know when I was a kid, I used to see all the cartoons that had a beaver in it. And still today, I see some cartoons and some stories with a beaver in it. And they show them, well, wrong. Let's just put it that way. They don't show the beaver accurately. And we'll get into that a little bit later as I start talking a little bit more about some of the characteristics of the beaver. So the beaver is North America's largest rodent, Rodentia. Yes, the rodent order. So the order of rodents, which is the largest order in the mammals. So rodents, the second largest rodent in the world is the beaver. So the beaver is the largest rodent in North America and the second largest in the world. And you may be wondering, who's the largest rodent in the world? Well, that would be the capybara. The capybara, or bara, or I'm never sure how to pronounce that. The capybara is the largest rodent in the world. Now, the beaver can weigh anywhere from about 35 up to 65 pounds. That's a pretty big animal, pretty hefty. They're about 3 to 4 foot long, including the tail, which is usually a little over, or on average, I'll say about a foot. So you're talking about 2 to 3 foot long for the body. Now, they have a very thick brown fur. They have very short legs. They're not very good on land at running. And we'll get into that a little bit later too. Their hind feet are webbed. Now, if you're not familiar with the beaver, they spend a lot of time in the water. So they need those webbed feet to help push them through the water. And of course, if we're talking about a beaver, we must talk about the beaver tail. Now, if you're listening to this up in Canada, you're thinking beaver tail. Why are we talking about a pastry? Yeah, up in Canada, there's a deep fried pastry that they make the dough and then they stretch it out to resemble a beaver tail. Now, as a matter of fact, there was a restaurant chain. I think they're still around. From the research I was doing, they are still around. There's a chain of restaurants up in Canada called Beaver Tails. And this is their specialty, is this deep fried pastry that looks like a beaver's tail. Yeah, the beaver tail is very long. It can be about 15 inches on a larger beaver, so about 15 inches long and about 6 inches wide. Now, it's flat. It's not round. So it's not 6 inches in diameter. It's 6 inches wide, and usually it's only about an inch thick. So it is a flat tail. Now, the tail is black, and it's covered in scales, very leathery scales. And like I said, it is flat. Now, if you see what looks like a beaver, but maybe you're thinking it's a baby beaver because it's very small, and it has a round rat-like tail, well, that's actually a cousin of the beaver, the muskrat. So the muskrat has the round tail, the beaver has the flat tail. And if you look up a picture of a beaver, you'll always see the flat tail. Yeah, they always show that flat tail to let you know it's a beaver. Now, when I used to see these old cartoons, this is what I was talking about, a lot of inaccuracies in these cartoons and some of the old shows. When you see these beaver in those cartoons, they would be sitting on top of a dam and they would be packing down sticks and mud with their tail. They don't do that. The cartoons are wrong. So what is the tail used for? Why do they have this big flat appendage on the back of their body? Well, that tail is used as a rudder. The way the muscles are at the base of the tail, it allows the tail to go not only up and down, but side to side as well. So they can turn their tail in the water to help them steer, to help them push themselves through the water. And between the tail and those webbed back feet, they can move pretty quick throughout the water. They can actually swim at up to 6 miles per hour in the water. So that tail and those webbed back feet help them move pretty quickly through the water. Now, a couple of other purposes for this flat tail. They use it as an alarm call or a warning. I remember many years ago, I was kayaking at Allegheny State Park down at Quaker Lake. And as I'm going through the water, you can see lodges along the bank of this lake. And as I was coming along with my kayak, I spotted a couple of beaver. I think there were like 3 beaver along the edge of the lake, and they were just going about their business. It looked like some of them were gathering some food, and it looked like the one was doing some repairs on the lodge. And so I decided I wanted to get a good picture up close. And so I knew they would find me. They'd realize I was there. So I went really slow and real quiet. I got a good pace going with the paddle, and then I just coasted. And I coasted up towards the beaver. I was getting closer and closer. Now, beaver don't have great eyesight. Okay, they have small eyes, not great eyesight, so they didn't really see me, at least not real well. I was sneaking up from behind, and all of a sudden, when I got about 5 feet from the beaver, one of them, he or she noticed me, and they took their tail and slapped it really hard on the water. I mean, I was close enough, and they slapped it so hard, I actually got wet from the spray, from the splashing. So they splashed their tail on the water surface, and then they disappeared under the water. And I looked around, and I saw the other 2 beaver did the same thing, right under the water. So this beaver that I was approaching warned the other 2 that there was danger. I was the danger. And so they went under the water, didn't see them for quite a while. Now, after I went around the lake and on my way back, they were up again, going about their business. They knew the threat was gone. But it was just so fascinating that they used that tail, and it was pretty loud, to slap it on the water and make that noise to let all the other beaver know, hey, there's danger around here. Now, another thing that they use their tail for is balance. When they're carrying a log in their mouth, walking across the shore headed towards their lodge or their dam, they want to keep themselves balanced, and so they use their tail to balance them. Now, the tail is also used for storing fat and also for heat regulation. So the way the tail is designed, and being black in color too, it will actually help them to regulate their heat, whether it's cold or too hot. So that's essentially what the beaver looks like. So where are they located? Well, they originated in North America. At least most of the evidence from their history that scientists have discovered shows that the beaver originated in North America, but they have made their way onto other continents. They assume it was across the land bridge. Now, if you're not familiar with what the land bridge is, it essentially goes from North America over to Asia up in the northern part. Take a look at a map, do a Google search. I don't want to get too much in depth with this. Most of North America has beaver on it. Part of Asia, a small part of Europe, the southernmost part of South America. That's where you're going to find beaver. So what about in the U.S.? Well, in the U.S., they're only exempt from the desert regions of Nevada and Southern California. And also, I'm not sure exactly the reasoning for this, you don't find beaver in the southern part of Florida. I did a lot of research on this trying to figure out, because I was kind of curious, why aren't they in southern Florida? It's the perfect habitat for them. Lots of waterways, lots of swamps, but you don't find them there. The only thing I found, and it wasn't scientific research, so don't go around telling everyone this is why. No, it's just someone's speculation. Someone sat down and tried to figure it out, and they says, yeah, this is probably why. But as far as I could find, there was no scientific research as to why they were exempt or missing from southern Florida. But the source I found actually thinks that it's probably because there is a very high alligator population in southern Florida. So they think that the alligators keep the beaver away from southern Florida. That's the theory, not scientifically proven. So don't go around saying, hey, Paul told me. No, I didn't. I just said it's a theory. So what type of habitat do beaver live in? Well, they like ponds, they like lakes, rivers, marshes, streams, wetlands. Basically, wet areas is where they like to live. They like water, especially deep water. The main reason that they like this type of environment is for protection, safety. Remember I said at the very beginning of the episode, beaver have very short legs? Yeah, those short legs actually make it very difficult for them to run away from some of these very fast animals like coyote and fox. So the beaver has to stay close to water. The deeper the water, the better, because then they can get away from the danger that's after them. Yeah, they can dip down into the water and not have to worry about running away from this animal. And the animal can try swimming after them, but like I said, beaver are pretty quick in the water. So the beaver likes these wet areas because of that. Oh, they also use it for food storage. Yeah, they like to store their food in the water, under the water, I should say, in the water and under the water. They like to store it there, especially in the winter time if they live in the northern climates where the water freezes over. They want the deep enough pond so that it doesn't freeze over totally, so that there's only a layer of ice on the top, and they can store their food by wedging it down into the mud at the bottom of the pond. Then they can go down and get that food in the middle of the winter time. So they use the ponds, the water, for getting away from danger and also for food storage. What happens if a beaver has a stream or a river, a small river, and they need more water? I mean, that's not going to protect them very well. Well, the beaver is a great architect. Yeah, they're an architect. And some people actually say, other than humans, the beaver is one of the only animals that can alter their own environment. They can turn one habitat into another habitat. So by building a dam out of sticks and mud, they can stop the water flow in a river or a stream and basically backing up the water behind that dam, creating a pond. And I've seen it happen in many places. Now, unfortunately, this is where the beaver gets the bad reputation sometimes because it causes flooding, but we'll talk about that later. So they're altering their own environment, turning a stream into a pond or a lake. And it's all so that they can get away from danger. What is their diet? I talked about storing their food, wedging it down into the mud. Well, they are herbivores. If you're not familiar with the term, an herbivore is an animal that eats just plants. So they eat leaves, inner bark. The inner bark of a tree is known as the cambium layer. The cambium layer is where the life of the tree is, the xylem and the phloem. Xylem going up, phloem coming down. You probably remember this from middle school. The energy going up and down the tree, giving photosynthesis a chance to create energy. And once again, I don't want to spend too much time on all that, but that's the part of the tree that the beaver likes to eat. The leaves and the inner bark. They also like the twigs. Now, mostly deciduous trees. They will occasionally eat the conifers, but they mostly prefer deciduous trees. Their favorite are aspen, birch. They like cottonwood. Willows are a favorite as well. And they will eat oak and maple too. So they eat a lot of different types of trees, but like I said, mostly deciduous. They will on occasion also eat grasses and aquatic plants. Remember, they're in the water, so if they need to, they will eat aquatic plants. Matter of fact, I believe that a couple of those beaver that I saw down at Allegheny State Park were on the edge eating plants, aquatic plants. And if you have a really tough winter and it goes a little long and they start running out of food, they're going to swim under the water and start eating the stalks of the cattails and some of the other aquatic plants that half of it's above the ice and the rest is down in the mud, and well, they eat that stalk. So they will eat those aquatic plants if they need to. Now, the scientists have discovered in the beaver gut there are microorganisms, and these microorganisms actually cause fermentation, which breaks down up to 30% of cellulose. So it helps with the digestion of all this woody material that they're eating. And speaking of woody material, I have people ask me all the time, it's like, well, if this beaver was that hungry, why is there so much bark on the ground? They don't really eat the bark of the tree. They're just gnawing that bark off the tree, and then they eat the cambium layer. Now, they will cache their food in the winter under the water, like I said. So if you see a beaver lodge and you see another pile of sticks next to it and you think, well, what are they doing there? Are they expanding the lodge? No, that's actually their food stores for the winter time. So they will pile that up and then they eat that in the winter time when the pond freezes over. So how do they cut down these trees? Well, besides talking about a tail when you're talking about beaver, you have to talk about the beaver teeth as well. Beaver teeth are very sharp, so that they can cut down these trees. They have 2 teeth on the top, very sharp teeth on the top, and 2 very sharp teeth on the bottom of their jaw. Those front incisors, there's a gap between those and the back teeth. Now, they are all flat, no pointed teeth. Remember, I said they are herbivores. The grinders. Flat teeth are used for grinding. Pointed teeth are used for killing or ripping and tearing. So your meat eaters are going to have those pointed teeth. But the herbivores, they have flat teeth. So the beaver has a row of flat teeth towards the back of the mouth, and then there's a gap towards the center front, and then it has the 4 teeth in the front. Why don't those flat teeth go all the way up to the front incisors? Well, the reason is they'd get in the way. If you're trying to gnaw at something and you have teeth there, they're getting in the way and they just make it tougher to chew through that wood. Now, they're cutting down these trees, these small shoots, so that they can build their dam and they can build their lodge. when you see a very large tree, maybe it's like, I don't know, 2-3 foot in diameter, and you see that a beaver cut it down, you probably sit there thinking, wow, this beaver was pretty stupid. He didn't realize that he's not going to be able to haul that across the land and take it over to his lodge. No, that's not what he was trying to do. The beaver cut down that really big tree to get at the food. Short legs, short body. He's gnawing away at the bark, getting at that cambium layer, and he will gnaw all the way up till he can't gnaw any further. There's some good food, some good cambium layer above that. And further up that tree, those delicious twigs and leaves, those twigs he can use to actually build his lodge or repair it. And same with the dam. Or he can eat them. So he needs to get higher up in the tree. Beaver have short legs, like I said. They don't have sharp claws. They can't climb trees. So how do you get to all that? Well, you bring it to you. That's why they cut down those big, hefty trees, so that they can fall to the ground and they have access to all that cambium layer, the leaves, the branches that were well out of their reach before. So that's why they're going after these really big trees. So don't think they're crazy when they do that. They actually are very smart. Now, if you see a picture of a beaver, I've seen some pretty cute pictures of a beaver's face, like they're almost smiling at you. And you see those orangish, yellowish teeth. And you may think, wow, this guy really needs to brush his teeth once in a while. Well, that's actually the enamel on the front teeth. It's not on the back teeth. Well, there's a little bit of orangish color to the back teeth, but it's very distinctive in the front. And the reason is because this enamel is much thicker on the front teeth. Now, if you look at the beaver's front teeth, and I've actually seen a skull of a beaver that got killed, and the teeth were very loose in the skull, and so you could pull them out. And if you looked closely at them, you could see that the back of those teeth were less orange than the front. That enamel on the front of the teeth, and it's actually all around, but much thicker on the front, is very hard. It's used for doing most of the chewing and biting, the chopping, if you want to call it that. So those chisels are, because of the front teeth, have that very dense enamel. So why are they orange? Well, they actually contain, that enamel contains iron. And that's what makes them orange. All rodents have orange front teeth. So if you ever see a skull and you see it has those sharp teeth on the front and you're wondering, well, this must be a rodent, but the teeth aren't orange, it's probably not a rodent. It might be a rabbit. Rabbits aren't rodent. They have the same tooth design as animals like beaver. They have the sharp front teeth, gap behind that, and then flat teeth behind that. They're not orange, though. Rabbits are lagomorphs. They're not rodents. So rodents have that iron in the enamel, and the outer tooth enamel is very hard for chewing. Now, inside the tooth, okay, inside those teeth, there's a pulp chamber. Now, this pulp chamber actually carries nutrients throughout the teeth, and it causes faster cell division. And if you know about cell division, basically it means growth. Therefore, the teeth are constantly growing. The teeth grow throughout the lifetime of the beaver, and they grow rather rapidly too. Remember, this guy is gnawing at trees. He's cutting down trees, deciduous trees, very hard wood. I mean, you go into a maple, boy, that's tough to cut. But he's cutting it with those very sharp teeth, but they're still wearing down. And as they wear down, well, they need to grow and replenish. Unfortunately, though, it can be a bad thing as well. I used to do wildlife rehabilitation. I used to be a licensed wildlife rehabilitator, and I had a lot of friends that were rehabilitators. And I had a friend who, well, she specialized in beaver. I actually got calls on beaver. I'd always refer them to her because beaver are very specialized to take care of. She told me once about a beaver that she rehabilitated. It got hit by a car, and when it got hit by the car, it threw its jaw out of alignment. And she took it to the vet. The vet tried to get it back in alignment, but it was so far broken on the jaw that it couldn't go back into alignment. They debated on whether to euthanize it. The beaver seemed to be doing all right. It didn't seem to be in pain. And so they let it go for a little while, see what would happen. They thought maybe it will go back into alignment. Well, it never did. And that beaver, unfortunately, because the teeth are constantly growing and it couldn't chew properly, couldn't gnaw properly, it had to eat soft foods. So they had to feed it soft foods and mostly like grasses and leaves. It couldn't eat through really hard logs. And eventually the teeth were growing so far that they started to catch on each other. They started to scrape on the lips of the beaver, and so she had to grind them down. And she spent a couple of years pretty much every month grinding down these beaver teeth with sandpaper. Wasn't fun, she told me. I do believe eventually they did feel that the beaver was not going to live a very fulfilling life. It would never go back to the wild, so they did eventually euthanize it. But this beaver, this poor thing, because the jaw was knocked out of alignment, it could not grind these teeth down, and they just kept growing. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in this episode are the beaver lips. Since I kind of just brought it up about how this beaver with the misaligned jaw was growing his teeth into the lips. Well, the lips of a beaver are very unique. There's actually two sets of lips. There's an outer set and an inner set. If you think about it, this guy's storing his food for the winter under the water in the mud. When he has to go outside of his lodge in the winter, swim under the water, grab one of these logs with its teeth, and swim back up into the lodge, obviously you have a log in your mouth, you can't close your lips. Wouldn't you drown? I know I would. I can't keep the water out of my mouth. So how does a beaver do it? Well, they have an inner set of lips. It closes inside of their teeth. So they can carry that log with their teeth. They can grab the log with their teeth without water getting into their mouth. So very unique how they can do that. Well, I have a lot more information about beaver, but unfortunately, we're running out of time here, so I'm going to call it a day, and we're going to wrap up this episode. But if you enjoyed learning about beaver, invite your friends, invite family, let everyone know about the podcast. Maybe they want to learn about beaver too. And next week, be sure to come back, learn some more fascinating information about beaver. But like I said, we're going to wrap it up for today. Hope you enjoyed wandering through nature with me. Don't forget, invite your friends and get those young people away from those screens. Get them out in nature. Bring a child with you when you go for your hikes or you get out in nature and explore. Get them outdoors. So if you ever have any nature questions or ideas for future episodes, drop me a message. Let me know. Or if you want to go wandering through nature with me in person, let me know. And we can go for a hike together. You can be a guest on the show. And if you want to support the podcast, be sure to check out my Ko-Fi page. I've been improving it constantly. There's different levels of subscriptions. It helps to keep the podcast going, come up with new information, gets me out in nature more, upgrading equipment. So keep exploring the nature with me by supporting it. So please support me on the Ko-Fi page. If you'd like to journal your wanderings through nature, don't forget I do have journals that I wrote that are available on Amazon. Just follow the link in the show notes, and I have other links in the show notes that you might want to follow as well. So check out the show notes to each episode. Have a great week and keep exploring the nature around you. Did you know that plastic is made with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? And did you know that only about 15% of all plastic is recycled into new products? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic so that we could stop harming the planet? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic sells products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection from toothbrushes to food storage containers to drinking straws, all plastic-free. And it's reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.